Hi, I'm Anushka,
And I'm Saika.
and welcome to Girls at ADHD.
We're two ADHD therapists with ADHD here to help you laugh, rant, cry, and unmask your way through adulting with ADHD.
This season, we're back with more unhinged moments.
Except now with guests.
So buckle up, hit play at two times speed.
And come spiral with us as we make sense of our beautifully chaotic brains together. Is it Natasha or Natasha?
Natasha. We had this conversation at the last meeting.
You also introduce yourself as Natasha sometimes.
I just don't know what to do.
You have to make adjustments and shit.
It's big code switching energy, okay? And then today I spoke to a white person on the phone that said Natasha. I was like, yes, Edward. I didn't even have to tell him. Anyway, yes, Natasha.
Today we have a really special favorite guest of ours, Natasha Lama. Yay!
Yay! Hey.
Hey. Well, today we're going to be talking about all things ADHD and sex, at least give an intro to it because it is a big topic. But before we get into that, just going to introduce you to our guests. So, Natasha is a registered psychotherapist with a master in counseling. Natasha enjoys engaging with clients through her warm, humorous style, fostering a collaborative approach. Being raised within a Malaysian Indian community gave Natasha an understanding and appreciation of the unique intricacies that exist within diverse communities. Her commitment to cultural sensitivity, community based value systems, and sex positivity ensures that clients from various backgrounds feel understood and supported.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
I have a lot of clients who come in and they don't realize that a common experience during sex and intimacy for ADHD is the fact that our minds wander, and that starts to like lead to a lot of spirals around like, do I love my partner or not? But I guess my first question is like, yeah, how do you think like being neurodivergent affects your sex life?
Ooh, big question. Also, I'm really sorry if you can hear my dog in the background panting. He's being really needy at the moment. But it's also his first birthday.
Happy
Oh,
birthday.
that makes sense.
um, but gosh, what is the relationship between ADHD and sex and neurodivergence and sex? It's such a big question. We could be here forever answering that. But I think that spiral is really common. Like, the fact that oftentimes folks with ADHD, I mean, we daydream, but like not in a bad way, like there's just multiple tabs open in our brain. And oftentimes with sex and intimacy, we always hear that it's important to be present and to be there so that you're, feeling the things and actually able to enjoy your experience. But that can be really difficult if you find yourself wandering and your mind wandering, looking at the lights, being like, oh my God, that light is so bright today. Or like, oh my God, why is it so cold? The blanket is like half off your
Oh my
boobs, but
god.
like covering your
Yes.
legs, and you're like, oh my God, my legs are warm, but like my boobs are cold. And it's just like all these like thoughts that move through your head. But
So real.
um but you feel like you're just like, what is wrong with me? Why am I not just, in the moment? My partner is literally doing all the things and I'm not paying attention. And then you start to feel bad. Like it's just a spiral. So I honestly can't even remember what your initial question was now. And if that is not indicative of my brain, then I don't know what is. But
So you mentioned some of the common struggles is like basically multiple tabs open in your brain all the time. That is me as well. Like sometimes I find myself having sex with someone who I enjoy having sex with, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking of my grocery list and all the things that I have to do as well as like a checkbox. So other than I guess thinking about different things, not being able to be present, are there other struggles that you tend to see in, I guess, ADHDers while having sex?
yeah, I think a couple of other things come up, either, sensory challenges, issues, or just really basic communication.
Yeah.
Whether it's, sensory related things like I was saying earlier, whether it's how they feel in a space, whether that's like body temperature, whether that's sounds that are distracting, whether that's, I don't know, sometimes people get, overwhelmed by like tongue when they're kissing and they're just like, oh, suddenly today this is just like not a vibe. Or, maybe a sensation that they enjoy, you know, like when I think about myself, there are sensations that I enjoy weirdly at like certain parts of my menstrual cycle that on other parts I'm just like, ugh, do not touch me there. Like that makes me just like have the ache, And so
Yeah.
you see those things really in common. But also I think communication wise, sometimes people assume that they have to read between the lines, right? Where sometimes it can feel not very clear, or sometimes a lot of people just don't talk about the sex that they want to have before they have sex. And trying to communicate with your partner whilst it's happening, like whilst you're in the moment, can be really like difficult for some people. Whether that's, they kind of start to lean into like really typical people pleasing behaviors, or,
Like saying yes to stuff where you're I'm actually having a sensory overload right now and I don't want to do
yeah,
this, but at the same time, if I say no, I'm scared that you're not going to want me anymore. So should I just go along with it? But now I have the ick from sex.
yeah, literally, right? And that's where you see those like communication issues come in, but then also the like rejection sensitivity come in,
Yeah.
that feeds into being like, oh, should I just be okay with this? And then then people start to like mask again.
Mm.
So it can be like a bit of a vicious cycle sometimes, that I see with clients. And I don't think this is something that I see with clients. It's something that I see in my own self, or something that I see in like my friends and people that are neurodivergent as well. So I think I want to make it clear to people that are listening that it's not that there's anything wrong with you. You're not broken. It's just your brain just works a little bit differently. And that is popping in a lot of areas in life.
Mhm.
And honestly, it can be really great within sex as well, and intimacy. But it's just about understanding your own self and your brain. And I think you both like talk about this a lot in this podcast, like sex aside and just other
Yeah.
parts of your life. But it's just really understanding how does, your own neurodivergence function in the context of your life, and figuring out how to work with that instead of working against it a lot of the time.
Yeah, so true though. And I think I think normalizing the fact that there are so many experiences that we have during sex and intimacy that we think might be weird, but like other neurodivergent folk are having the same issue. It's like everything that you spoke about earlier, around like getting distracted and stuff. Hell, I get just so distracted, or like I don't know. Sometimes in the middle, I'm just like, now would be a great time to discuss this topic that is not relevant to this situation. And it's been really interesting, like I guess exploring like a partnership with someone else who's also neurodivergent and ADHD, because we have some left field conversations in the middle of everything. Like it's all hot and sexy, and then all of a sudden I'm like, but did you know in like ancient Rome this thing was a thing? And it's like, oh really? Had no idea. And then we just have like a discussion midway, and I'm like, this is so random and like opposite to the way that I feel like we see sex happen on TV or like in any other context that I've experienced.
I think it's so wonderful when people start to get rid of the shackles of what they think sex should look like,
Yeah.
and just start having the sex that they want to have.
Yeah.
Because and again, this is a very human thing, by the way, like it happens to all of us, where you're like, oh, I should be doing this, or this is what I see in the movies, or this is what I hear about when my other friends talk about it. And when we are so used to a particular type of like social script of like what sex looks like, then sometimes it can be really easy for people to feel like they're not doing enough, they're not following the right order of the way things are supposed to go. But what you don't see in the media, in even in like porn, right, which is a lot of people's like first access points to what sex, in air quotes for those who can't see me, but in air quotes, of like what it should look like. But those things don't show like laughing, taking breaks,
Yeah.
having to change positions because it feels weird. You're like, oh, this is going to be sexy and hot. And then you try and you're like, what the hell is this? Nope.
Awkwardly taking your clothes off, awkwardly putting your clothes back on.
Yes.
Yep, getting stuck because someone's freaking sock is stuck to their inners and you can't take out the sweatpants because it's like a bottleneck. Like, you don't really like see or you don't see the like fumbling around in the darkness for like the, lube or whatever. You don't see all these things, but they're just such normal parts of sex, and like getting distracted halfway to maybe like start talking about something and then getting back into it. That's so fine. That is
Yeah.
absolutely fine. Like there's nothing bad about that. I think if anything, it's just really cute, and it shows how much people can like trust each other and feel comfortable with their partner/partners, right?
Mm.
And so yeah, I think some of the biggest things that I work through with clients in sessions is actually just starting to get rid of the script of what we think sex should look like, and starting to write your own of like, what do you actually want pleasure and intimacy to look like in your life. And that is also meant to change. It's not like a set in stone thing. Just because you like something now doesn't mean you have to like it tomorrow even. It can change, and that's absolutely fine.
You know how you said that there is like a social script that we learn about in like media, porn, whatever. But a lot of ADHDers, especially those who haven't like learned how to unmask, that is the only script they know. And they're like, it comes with I guess the rejection sensitivity of like, if you don't do it like that, then I don't know, something horrible is going to happen. Your partner's going to hate you. Or sometimes because it is so hard to like stay present, sometimes it is easy to kind of just slip into that social mask. At least for me, sometimes I like, when I know that I'm not present at the moment, and like we kind of already planned that, yeah, we're going to have a nice date, there's going to be sex, like, yes, I know consent is there, like it's not like I'm forcing myself to do it, but sometimes it just is easier to kind of just slip into the mask and then kind of follow that social script. For someone who hasn't started that work on unmasking, or like um hasn't really started the work on figuring out other ways of having sex, where can they start?
I love this question. I think, oh my God, I actually sound like that TikTok sound.
Yeah.
It was really unintentional, but Lola Tang, I love you. Anyway, sorry. I think where the best place that they can start is actually just with themselves. You don't have to start with a partner. You don't even need a partner to start this, because I think some of the biggest impacts of like social scripts around sex actually starts with us and what we think is acceptable and not acceptable, whether that's with our bodies or exploring like pleasure just with ourselves. This is not necessarily neurodivergent related, but I think of some clients that will say like, oh, my partner and I haven't really been having sex, and like I'm really frustrated by that. I'm feeling a bit resentful by that. And so I'll ask like, what is important to you about like with sex? Why do you enjoy it? And they're like, yeah, well, I like, doing this, and I like, having an orgasm. I like experiencing pleasure. And then I'm like, okay, what are your pleasure practices outside of what you do with your partner? And oftentimes a lot of people will be like, well, why do I need to do that if I have a partner? Like that's what they're there for. And I'm like, okay, that's part of what they're there, like,
Yeah.
that's part of what a partnership might be. But oftentimes your relationship with yourself and your own pleasure is a great way to kind of start exploring a lot of these things, right? Sometimes it's as simple as like being like butt ass naked, sitting in front of a mirror and just like looking at your body and just being like, oh, okay, this is what my boobs look like, this is what my chest looks like, oh, this is what someone sees when they're touching my thigh. Like just 5 minutes and
Yeah.
then you're done. Go shower, do
Okay.
whatever, for people that like feel comfortable with engaging with like solo sex slash masturbation, then I would say try that. Like, but try in a way where you're not trying to focus on achieving a specific goal, right? You're not trying to get to an orgasm, because sometimes when you put like a achievement that you have to tick off, you're not going to want to do the thing, or you're going to feel pressure to do the thing, and you're not going to actually experience the thing, because the point is pleasure, and to actually start noticing those things. So I would say start with themselves, but outside of that, I hate to make it sound so simple, but conversation, particularly if they have a partner, right? In that situation, actually talking to your partner about the sex that you have or are planning to have, right? Where being like, let's say they're like, in the past, like I'd love to like talk about some of the sex we have. And you can do this over like dinner, over a glass of wine if you like, or a cup of like Thai, whatever your preference is. But just like sit down and chat like about the sex that you have. What do you enjoy about it? What feels good? What doesn't feel good sometimes, being like, oh yeah, like sometimes I really love when I don't know, sometimes I really love when you like kiss my neck, but there are certain parts where I don't know why, for some reason, on some days, I can't take it. I don't know why. Like the sensations just make me like, ugh. And it's not you, it's just me. And I don't know why it happens. But I want you to know that the like some days, if I tell you to like move away or not touch me there, it's not because I don't like you or, don't enjoy that type of touch some days, but just not on that day. Yeah, I don't know. Feel free to stop me anyway, because like my brain is just like pew 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 with ideas, because I think there are just so many different ways that people like where they can choose to start, whether that's with themselves or whether that's just with really simple conversations, if they have a partner.
How do you like move away from because of porn and also just the hypersexualization of women and in general, like they also we all and also like being ADHD and like, oh, she's gone.
Oh, we've lost our girl.
Lost her. I completely forgot what we were talking about.
Oh my god.
Yes, I remember, because yeah, so you're talking about communicating, you're talking about like getting in touch with yourself and all that stuff. But because as women who have been hypersexualized, especially in porn and all that stuff, and also being an ADHDer and always masking and having to perform, how does one step away from performance or the need to perform and go into like their actual desire?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I would like to answer your question with a question, which is more inquisitive to the both of you. And you don't have to get personal, but when you think of yourselves or when you think of some of the clients that you see, like what ways do you see them performing when it comes to sex and intimacy, whether that's about yourself or your clients?
I think not so much now, but in the past, it's definitely been like the pressure to like live up to some like kind of imaginary expectation that I've had in my head about what sex and intimacy looks like potentially, and like do things in a particular way. It's like what we were talking about earlier, with like there's consent, but then it's like I've changed my mind and I don't really want to do this anymore.
It's kind of like you can't be fucked at one point.
Yeah, like it's like I'd like to just this is not interesting anymore. Like I'm a bit done, but then not wanting to hurt people,
Yeah, not wanting to hurt people's feelings is a big one.
and then feeling like you're a shit person, but then you're like, no, I do like you as a human, and then it's just like I think it's all the train of thoughts. Yeah, I think in terms of performativeness, it's the masking that comes up of like for example, I in my last relationship when we first started dating, I I like dressing up. I will throw a good fit on for like the fit. But on a sensory level, when I get home, bro, I want to get out of my clothes.
Yes.
I want to take them off and I want to be in an oversized t-shirt because that makes me feel more comfortable. And when I'm in that, honestly, I don't really care about it because I want to feel sexy from the inside. And then I'm like more comfortable and therefore I want to have sex with you. But like, I think in previous relationships, one of the things that I really struggled with was like, oh, like, and especially like being with somebody who didn't understand like neurodivergence, or like even try to have this conversation with that person to be like, look, when this happens, like if we go on date night and I come back, I need to go into something comfortable straight away. That concept of like, oh, but like if you just stayed in your outfit, it'd be like so nice for us to like do it in that. And I'm like, no, because I feel uncomfortable. Like I don't like this. And like at the start hesitating to say that. And then in the middle being like, nope, I'm gonna put my foot down and actually just tell you what's going on in a nice way. But then what do you do when that is also met with rejection and someone pushes for it, you know? Because
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah. Oh, that's, first of all, that is awful. That's really shit. But this is why I'm a huge proponent of having sex before date night, not after.
yes.
That's smart.
Because the people that can do it after, I'm like, I love this for you so much. But I'm not one of those people. And a lot of people that I speak to are also not one of those people. Because again, like after date night, you know, yes, you might feel really connected to your partner and you might feel like, oh my God, this is great. But you might also be really like feeling really full from the food that you just ate that was like bombastic. Or sometimes like I don't know what, I'm just a girl with tummy issues. So, you know, oftentimes a lot of things will make me bloated and I'm like, I'm not feeling sexy right now. Okay. This is not a sexy
Yeah.
context and thus I do not want to have sex. Or you're just like too tipsy and you're just like, I just want to lie down and like put on a TV show and watch that to end our date night. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
Yeah. And like unwind.
exactly, you want to unwind. So I'm a big like, you know, do it before you go out for dinner because then, you know, you would have had more energy and then you're also feeling like we all know, okay, how you feel after you have good sex. You feel like you're floating. You feel really beautiful because of all the, you know, gorgeous endorphins. And so it just makes for a great date night after. However, going back to before, I also think that, you know, a lot of my work with clients, but also just like when I speak to people, and also think something that I had to do for my own self is to actually learn to be okay with someone else's discomfort. And I don't mean discomfort in like, you know, pushing them to do something they don't want to, but I mean discomfort in the fact that they might, you know, feel some type of way about what your expectations are, right? Or your boundaries are. And that is not for you to have to appease or, you know, make them feel okay. That's for them to figure themselves out, to regulate, to adjust accordingly, because it's not your responsibility. And, you know, whether that's if you're tired, if you're, you know, again, yeah, you're just like, I am not, you know, I don't want to stay in these clothes that make me like itchy, or I'm just like, you know, it's cute, but I'm like, I'm tired, you know, being in this outfit. I just want to get out of it. Um, and you know, let's say, right, let's say someone has a partner that's like, oh, you know, and they're like talking about the sex that they want to have or what they enjoy having. They're like, oh, I think you look so hot in a sundress, okay? And they're like, it would be so cool, it would be so schmexy to have sex when you have a sundress on. Be like, yes, that's a very is a hot idea. I like that too. Let's plan for it in advance, you know. Let's think about a day, or maybe we can do it before we go out for date night. You know, let me pick another sundress that I don't mind getting dirty because we know what can happen sometimes. Okay, I don't have to. I don't have to go into detail about that, but you know, just in case fluids fly places, you know, make sure you have a plan B for your outfit. But again, you can do it before or do it at a different time. But I think, yeah, it's just learning to be okay with someone else's discomfort, because you do not have to just appease them and like people please to be like, yeah, okay, it's fine, it's okay. No, because then that just kind of feeds into the cycle of, you know, oh, like, you know, this situation, like I don't really want to feel a sense of rejection or discomfort, so, you know, I don't want to feel criticized or that they're disappointed in me, so I'm just gonna, you know, people please and be like, it's fine, or I'm gonna use some other type of like numbing coping strategy. Maybe I'll just have another drink, so I'm a little bit more tipsy and like, a bit more relaxed, and it's whatever. And we don't want that. I don't want anyone to have to continue to kind of use those types of like ways of managing these situations, rather than instead just encouraging a bit more of like an open conversation. And if your partner or partners in those situations do not meet you where you're at, and you can't meet each other where you're at, then it's like
Bye.
bye, in a more polite way.
Reconsider.
Just
Yeah,
reconsider. Find someone who actually like listens and like respects your boundaries, maybe.
I think it's really important for people to be given the opportunity to like, process and like think about how they're feeling. And then, maybe initially they're like, oh, this sits really weird with me. I don't know why I'm feeling some type of way about it. And then come back to the conversation and be like, oh, I think I was feeling this way because I was feeling guilty, or I was feeling like confused. I don't know, whatever the feeling was. And you're allowed to come back to that conversation and come back and find resolution and find reconnection and repair. But
Yeah.
don't love when people, continue to make people feel bad about something that they're actually communicating to you so that you both can have a more pleasurable experience together.
I like how you said you can come back to the conversation later, because also like ADHDers were like, it has to be now. And if it doesn't go well now, everything sucks.
Yep.
So yeah, you can come back to the conversation.
It's such a valid, like, these are just such valid points.
Yeah.
God, people just talk to each other. Jesus, sorry. Just so, like,
It feels difficult. Yeah.
It does sound simple, and I think this is something that I've been reflecting on a lot this year, which is just the answer always come back to like, we need to just communicate. Let's talk about it, or let's like, we need to figure this out. But I think what makes it difficult is what is behind that. What is the feeling that comes out for people
yeah.
by communicating, right? And then for me, it's just like, where else do you notice this feeling coming up in your life? Where else does this sense of, whether that's guilt, embarrassment, shame, failure, whatever, come up in your life? And it's thinking about, okay, like, then how do we address some of that? And you don't have to address it in that moment, in that conversation, but I think having a lot of communication and a lot of conversation also comes with sitting with really not fun feelings, and that is okay. That doesn't mean that you're not communicating well, or that it's not going well. But I think a lot of healthy communication is also just sitting with uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah. And I also want to say, like, especially if you've never done like healthy communication before, it is a skill that you have to build. So it's gonna feel so weird at the beginning, but then the more you do it and the more positive feedback you receive from it, it's gonna be easier for you to do that. And I also found this interesting article where it was like, when you are communicating openly and very straightforward about things such as intimacy and stuff, it does come with the risk that if you say it, the other person might not respond well. So that is a reason why you are feeling that fear. So that fear is valid. But, the alternative is you always put away your needs, put away your boundaries, and then grow resentment if you don't actually bring that up.
What a fun time. But these are the things we're not taught at like school and stuff, right? Like, we're just not, it's just not like discussed often. Social skills and how to have healthy communication and conversations with people and how to practice that is just not something. And when you add a cultural layer to it, we are even more worried or scared or concerned about, like, I guess like that people pleasing tendency as well. Like, the neurodivergence is something, but if you're growing up multicultural like we did, and like, in the communities that we have, we do have a lot of fear around, like, I don't know, being rejected from the norm, I
Yeah.
guess, almost, or doing something. And like, then there's other layers of like, we don't talk about sex at all when you're South Asian.
No, I'm still a virgin.
don't do it. And if we're doing it, it's for the purpose of reproducing. So, just don't even consider it, guys. So then you don't know what to expect, and you're putting even more pressure on yourself when the time comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also another fear I have from communication is like, because, dating, I've dated a lot of neurotypical people as well. And they like communicate in such a different way. Like, I think I am not subtle at all. I think I'm very straightforward and to the point. But they think they need to read between the lines of what I'm saying and don't actually listen. So
Yeah. Dude, this is the like crux. Communication is just, it's so interesting to me because I think this is what I've started to do a lot is I will actually just be really explicit, and I will actually um like when I think about how I communicate with my partner, I will actually be really explicit about what I think, their assumptions are based on what I'm saying or what they're saying. So I might, I might ask them, I don't know, hey, can you do this, right? Whatever this is. And, they might say like, yeah, okay, I don't mind, whatever you prefer. Or I know, for example, my partner is the type of person that will oftentimes put their needs aside to put other people's in front of, and I don't want that. I'm like, not in this relationship. Okay, we can meet somewhere in the middle together. And so oftentimes I will say back, I'm like, okay, cool, you're choosing this. I just want to make sure that you're choosing this because you want to choose this, but
mm,
not because you think that
Mm,
I feel like you should do this, or because
yeah.
I think that you should do this way, or you feel like you should give me the option to do it first, or more access to, whatever it
yeah.
is. And oftentimes they'll be like, yeah. And as soon as I sense a little bit of hesitation, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
cough it up, babes. Just say what you want to say. Or just, tell me what you want to do. And I think it's like, it's a little things that you notice how these things come up culturally. Like, for example, people never want to be the first ones to eat the food, or like
Mm,
take the first bite from like a pot of curry, and everyone's like, no, no, you take. Or they'll serve for other people and make sure that they're the last. Or if there's like one
Yeah.
last thing left on the plate, and everyone's like, you have no, you have, no, 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 you have. And I'm just like, dude, I'm gonna freaking have that last one, because you know what? I am deserving of good things and pleasure. And it's just like little things, and what I will not tolerate anymore. And I think this is just me, and it takes time to get there. Is I will not tolerate. That's such a harsh way of saying it, but you know what? It's fine. I will not tolerate if, let's say, people are like fighting to get the last thing on the plate, the last like roti, the last pronte on the plate, and I'm like, I'll take it. We're all fighting, and I'm like, no, no, you take it. And then after a while, I'm like, I'm sick of this. I'll take it. It's fine, guys. Don't worry. I'll take one for the team. And I will not tolerate if someone gets annoyed at me for taking that. I'm like, you
yeah.
are responsible for managing your own feelings and communicating if you wanted something more than I did. But you said it was okay for me to have it, so I'm having it right now. Um, and I think, again, like, a lot of this comes with a lot of trust and a lot of communicating, but I think sometimes we need to challenge some of the ways that we exist, because I think it's so beautiful that we care so much about each other, and we want everyone to enjoy something, or like have the first bite or have the last bite of
Yeah.
something. But sometimes that comes,
To our own detriment, though, right?
yeah, it comes at our own detriment, and also it like affects the way that we communicate in all these other parts of our life, especially sex and intimacy.
ADHD and kink. Because,
Oh my
like,
god.
novelty,
Oh my god. Yeah, I
right?
think we can do like a whole other episode of like kink.
I feel like we should.
Okay, wait. Before you get into impulsivity, because I would love to do a whole episode on like kink, because it's so interesting to me. But I will say, for those people that are listening now, I think the intersection between neurodiversity and kink is so fascinating, because I think it's, if you are neurodiverse and you find yourself really, whether you're already within the kink space and you're like, this is fucking fire, or you are looking at exploring it and you're like, oh, these concepts seem really interesting to me, and I feel like they really resonate with me. It's probably because, like, within the kink space, communication is such a key part of those spaces, and negotiation is also a really big part of it. And so you are hopefully talking about any scenes that you're doing before, well, in a good ethical kink space, you are talking about these things before they are happening. You are negotiating what's okay, what's not okay, different areas of touch. You're talking about different, potentially depending on the scene, you're talking about safe words. And it also, because you're talking about this, you're communicating this before the scene, it allows people within scenes to actually be nonverbal, to be like, yeah, I'm not going to actually talk, I'm not doing, but we've agreed. We've spoken about all the things that are actually going to happen within this scene very clearly, very explicitly. So I'm not going to have anything sprung on me during this scene. So like, I can just be like, take the
Be
wheel,
present.
baby. And
Yes.
yeah, you can be fully present.
Impulsivity and ADHD, I guess, and yeah, just sex. What does that look like? What are some examples? Is it always a good thing? I
It's
don't know.
not always a good thing. I say that from personal experience. It is not always a good thing.
Yeah, look, it can come up in a lot of different ways, right? I was actually reading an article about this. It might come up in, let's say we think about, forgetting, and we think about contraceptive options. So like people might forget to take the pill at the right time if they don't have the like systems in place to help them like stay on track for that, which is, sometimes when I think about clients, especially clients that have ADHD, it's thinking about, if you're thinking about contraceptive options, which one are you going to think about that's going to actually work best with the way that your brain works and also your body and your hormones, of course. And so sometimes, like, you have people that say that it's like, I will forget to take the pill. Can you hear my dog whining?
Yes.
Yeah, it might be like forgetting to take the pill. It might be deciding, that's not for me. I'm not going to use that contraceptive option. Other things with impulsivity, I think specifically, might look like, someone being like, oh, I don't have a condom today. And let's say we're thinking about like penis and vagina sex, and someone's like, I don't have a condom, and you're just like, whatever, it's fine. I don't care about this right now. I'm in the moment. I'm getting all this dopamine. It's fire. And then, you might think about it after and be like, I probably should have, we probably should have had that conversation before, or like paused maybe.
Also, you just might do like, you just might need dopamine, and then sex is like what you use to get the dopamine as well. And you don't really think about the repercussions of it.
You're like really in the mood, but it's just like you need a dopamine hit, and then afterwards you're like, I'm done now.
So you're like, oh, wow, that's been great.
You're like, ooh. No.
I mean, you see it in relationships, right? I was saying to one of my clients recently, because when I do assessments and stuff, I ask like all these questions, but then I also ask lived experience questions based on things that I can remember. And I'll be like, oh, so like in relationships, like, do you ever like have a crush on someone and then get to know them really well, and then they start liking you, so you stop liking them back? And people are like, yeah. And they're like, that sounds terrible when you say it out loud, but I'm like, no, but that's such an ADHD thing. And I think we've spoken about this in a different episode, but like, I don't know, I've had clients come through and talk about sex the same way, where they're like, yeah, I was really interested in them and then we did it, and I'm like, I don't like you.
Oh my God, this is why I'm chronically single. Jesus.
It's like, that was fun for you.
I would also say, like 2020 Lama can relate. So I feel, yeah. But also I think that, it makes me think about, gosh, what is this thing that I heard someone say years ago? And if someone's listening to this and you can remember, please just message us. But it's something someone said about, never make any decision hungry or horny.
Yeah.
and it's a running, like, it's a joke that sometimes I tell to like some of my friends, where they're like, oh my God, like this person is so blah blah blah, and I'm just eternally thinking that they're not, and I'm like, girl, that this person's not it, okay? But I'm just like, have you considered you know getting yourself off before you make a choice. And I know it sounds so silly, but I think it's just the funniest thing. I can't necessarily speak right now for like people that are like single or seeing people and like not necessarily in like long-term like partnerships / relationships, because if I start talking about that, we'll be here for a bajillion years. Why? We should definitely do another episode. But for the people that when I think about, long-term relationships, let's say, you're like wondering why, initially you were so interested in the sex that you were having with your partner, and that suddenly started to drop off, and you're like, what's going on? Like, it was really great at one point, and now I'm like bored, I'm not looking forward to it, or and when you're not looking forward to it, then you don't want to have it, and then they start to notice their desire for sex like plummet or decrease. And for me, the question is always like, how are we creating novelty again?
And what's happening around just the sex part.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like, obviously you're not going to crave the sex if you're just doing the same freaking thing every time. You're making out, someone goes down on someone, and then when you think about heterosexual relationships, like, there's going to be some penetration involved, and then we're done. Like, obviously you're going to be bored out of your mind after, like, I don't know, a couple of times of that. But when I think about previous generations, and even now, mind you, like, these are things that people just expect. They're just like, yeah, this is just what it is, and this is just this is just what sex is, this is just what intimacy is. You just deal, and then eventually you just stop having sex. And I'm like, okay, perhaps.
Hot take.
I was like, perhaps, or perhaps not, where we can actually start to think about, like, what is it about sex that I enjoy? Because why would you desire sex that you do not find pleasurable, you do not find joy in, you do not, that is not playful, that is not curious?
It's not fun.
Yeah, it's not fun, so I think it's thinking about, like, how can I continue to introduce novelty to this in some way. We spoke earlier about performing sex.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that happens when we just, like, move through the steps of being like, now we kiss.
Yeah.
Now we touch. Now we fuck. And then now we move on. And I would really love people to, like, start looking at sex with a curious lens, with a curious and, like, playful lens. It's like, how do you start to encourage, like, bring some of this back, or encourage that novelty, right? Where it's like, what, maybe we're not going to follow the steps. Maybe today is just going to be about exploring. We're going to touch each other in different places and just see how that feels, and I think a lot of that people find challenging is because it's so not what we're used to. It is so vulnerable not have to follow a script and actually have to lean into what you find pleasurable in that moment. It can feel really scary, but there's just so much fun and joy and playfulness in trying new things.
These have been such great topics, such great conversation. And I think, we should definitely do more episodes on some of the topics that we've touched on today, because I think it'd be fantastic. They can all be unpacked. We say this about every episode, but like this especially, like, just stuff that is not spoken about often enough. If you want to learn more about this sort of stuff and you're like, it'd be really great as an adult to learn more about, like, some of the topics that we've spoken about today, or even things that we haven't mentioned yet, but you're like, I have ideas, send them through to us, like email us and let us know, because Natasha actually runs workshops for Ramid and, like, is doing some really cool ones at the time of this recording this year, but is looking at running some really cool ones in 2026. So use your resources, guys.
Any last messages for our listeners, Natasha?
Ooh, oh my God, the pressure. My last message for now, it sounds so ominous, like I'm going to, like, die or something. That's not happening.
Until next time, this is a messaging.
I think the message that I would leave you all with is to just try to be curious. That is it. To be curious and to be playful, is how I would love a lot of us to, move through when we think about pleasure and intimacy and sex, because there's so much value in that, as opposed to just, feel like you need to tick boxes or perform a certain
Yeah.
way or do things out of obligation. And just be curious, like ask questions, talk to your partners, talk to your friends about this. And I think when we start to like encourage conversation around this, that we can be vulnerable, that we can be open, that we can be playful with, then it takes away so much of that shame and nervousness around pleasure and sex.
Well, thank you. Thank you for helping us name the messy, nuanced, and beautiful realities of navigating sex and ADHD. And I guess for anyone listening who's ever felt too distracted, too much, and too shut down to access pleasure, this episode is your reminder that you are not broken, you are not too much, you're not weird, you're just wired differently. So thank you so much, Natasha, for coming on to our podcast, and hopefully we'll see you another time.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening.
And remember to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Girls That ADHD for more ADHD realness, to ask us questions, or slide into our DMs with episode ideas.
And sign up to our newsletter at girlsatadhd.com to stay updated on new episodes, toolkits, workshops, and book in ADHD coaching if you're ready to work with your brain, not against it.
And if you found this episode useful, leave us a quick review, because it really does help us reach more ADHDers and help them find us in the chaos.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye!